to the Remington podcast, where we take a deep dive into all things ammunition. I'm your host, Audrey Mays, and today I'm sitting down with Head of Research and Development, John Langenfeld.
Happy to be here.
We are talking straight walls. More importantly, we've seen on the market a lot of straight walls come into light this year and last year. But can you tell me why?
Sure, yeah. So there's more states right now that are allowing the use of limited range cartridges, which include straight walls. It's not all encompassing because there's some bottleneck cartridges that fit into those rules, but most of it is all straight wall. So states are coming off of that old rule of having to use slugs only or slugs and muzzleloaders, and allowing cartridges that fit their criteria that are straight wall cartridges for deer hunting.
And why? Why would a law for a state, why would they say, hey, you can only shoot muzzleloader and shotgun?
So a lot of those go back to the very beginning when the first deer seasons in those states would come along. I grew up in Illinois, so I grew up hunting with a shotgun, and they call them limited range.
Right.
And so if you look at the ballistic coefficient, if you look at the distance of stability of a projectile, if you look at the muzzle velocity of a shotgun slug, they're usually short, fat, squatty projectiles. So the BC is rather low. And if you compare that to something like a 30-06 or a 270, something that you would think a Western cartridge, longer range. So the rules of having to use those shotgun slugs are going to limit your distance, your effective distance to harvest game. And I believe that it's primarily due to the belief that you're going to send projectiles into populated areas. So they're trying to limit that distance of what can be used, because you're not out west, with a population density that's much lower. Even though there are states that are as similarly populated and hunters that don't have issues with high-powered rifles.
Right.
People, if you follow the rules and, know what's behind your target and, shoot at places that you know where that bullet's going to go, then you typically don't have a problem. But those are the rules.
Right. So in your educated opinion, because you don't work for the DNR and you don't work for Game and Fish, why do you think it's taken so long for them to switch over to these straight wall cartridges? Because they've been around since black powder.
Oh, yeah. Most of them are very old. 4570 has been around for a long time. I think that it may not be high priority for the lawmakers to look at changing those things. I think in some of the states, they have allowed pistol cartridges as well, like 44 Magnum or 45 Colt. Handgun cartridges to be used during those slug muzzleloader seasons as well.
Yep.
But I think that, it just started to get momentum. You had to have one state that was, to take charge and go after it and advocate for it. And I don't know if they use data to say, hey, this is no different or it's very similar. Why can't we use these? But once you started to see a couple states start to hey, we're doing this, we're doing that, maybe there's pressure to go in and have those conservation or, your DNR type groups take a look at it and say, you know what, this makes sense. And then they create the, criteria. Now, every state, it's not just like, hey, here's a straight wall and it's legal. You need to go in and look at your state's laws
and regulations.
So that you can see if there's a minimum caliber, if there's a min or a max case length, things of that nature, so that you can make sure that you're buying something that's legal in your state.
And you hunt primarily during these seasons in Illinois? Question mark.
Still?
Yes.
No, I actually haven't hunted Illinois in a long time. I lived there, grew up there, was there until I was 25, and I hunted with slugs, and then with iron sights, and then I moved to a cantilever fully rifled 870 with a scope on it. And what I was trying to do was get as close to a rifle as I could possibly get.
Right.
Trying to extend my range rather than, smooth bore and then iron sights and then rifled barrel. I was trying to be as accurate as possible, be able to confidently take a shot if I needed to at 100 or 150 yards. And they finally, in Illinois, allowed us to use muzzleloaders during the shotgun seasons, because they used to have shotgun only, and then they would have handgun only. It was a late winter doe season.
It's like a week at a time.
Well, the first shotgun season was, one of them was 3 days, one was 4 days.
Oh, okay,
I think
really short.
I think it was like Thursday. I think it was a Thursday through Sunday, and one was Friday. I think it was Friday through Sunday. Yeah, so I think it was 7 days total. You got to hunt deer with a shotgun.
Okay.
And then, your muzzleloader season. But anyways, you had to have specific tags for all these. And then things started to become like, here's a more of a modern gun season, and you could use a handgun, a muzzleloader, or a shotgun. And then I think it was 2 years ago that Illinois allowed the use of the straight walls.
Okay. And some examples of straight wall cartridges, 4570, 350 Legend, 400 Legend now.
Yep. So you got 360 Buckhammer.
Yep.
There's the 444 Marlin. There's a 405 Winchester, but you're not seeing too many of those. So there's a lot of cartridges out there. There's a handful that are really popular for this segment of deer hunters. Mm-hmm. But there's straight walls out there that are big, large, dangerous game cartridges. Like a 500 Nitro Express. Mm-hmm. Some state that doesn't have a maximum length on there, that's legal. You could use it. I don't know that everybody wants to go shoot an elephant gun, but it's straight wall. But usually your 350 Legend is your minimum that we're seeing people use up to about 4570.
We're saying generally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where the segment, in between 35 and 45 of velocity range that's, in the mid to low 2,000 feet per second ranges where all these are falling. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's kind of, I've kind of stayed in tune with it because I still have family and friends that live in Illinois. And of course, we came out with the 360 Buckhammer a few years ago.
Yeah.
So I could relate to the use of the cartridge and why we were coming out with it because I lived having to use a shotgun. Mm-hmm. And so we wanted to not only come out with something that everybody would like, but also I could say, would I use this? Would I want to hunt with this? Or would I still use my muzzleloader? That was kind of how I would relate to it. But so I've kind of kept up with what people are buying and questions that friends of mine have. I still have some that are still shooting a shotgun because they love those AccuTips that we make, and they have confidence in them and they know what they do, and maybe they don't shoot very far, and they still have a case of slugs that they're going to shoot up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's kind of, like I said, I'm still kind of in touch with it because of the family and friends in Illinois.
Yeah, not to mention that we now make that Sabo slug in a muzzleloader.
You can buy it for a muzzleloader.
Yeah.
Yep.
AccuTip MZ is now available online.
Yep. And if people don't know that projectile is also the same one that we put in the 450 Bushmaster. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So it's pretty awesome.
So you can get it in 3 places. Yeah. No, it's great. Yeah. The AccuTips expand very large. They're bonded and they do a great job. People that, harvest deer with them are very happy with the terminal performance, and they're very passionate about using them.
Yes. Yeah. And so obviously you said that when you hunted in Illinois, you try to get basically as close to a rifle as you could. Mm-hmm. But can you give me a little bit of breakdown on terminal performance, just really high level, on a straight wall cartridge versus a slug? I mean, pick any straight wall cartridge. Sure.
Well, the closest ones you're going to get to a slug would probably be like a 20 gauge.
Okay.
Because they're typically going to be shooting around 45 caliber. And so you're going to compare that to probably 450 Bushmaster and 4570.
Okay.
Again, with our 450 Bushmaster, it's actually the same projectile in our 20 gauge AccuTip. Same thing. The velocity of the 450 Bushmaster is a little bit higher. And so your terminal performance is virtually the same. Mm-hmm. So I would relate in your mind, if you're thinking I want to buy a straight wall, if you like to use a 20 gauge, if you like that performance and how it hits and everything, you can probably get just a little bit more out of a 45 cal, whether it's a 450 Bushmaster or 4570. Mm-hmm. You're shooting the same caliber bullets, so you're going to have the same size entrance holes. Depending on the type of projectile that you're using, is going to depend on what your penetration depth, if you have exit holes, if it stays inside the animal, things like that. But I would say that you're probably going to be in the, 18, let's call it 1,800 feet per second is an average range between 2 3/4 and 3 inch 20 gauge slugs.
Yep.
And you're going to see, 2,000, a little bit more with, 4570s and 450 Bushmasters, so very close, but a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. And so do you think people are just transferring to straight walls because they're more comfortable with a rifle? If the terminal performance is similar,
Yep.
I mean, you're saying obviously it's a little better in a straight wall.
Can be a little faster.
Why would I pick up a straight wall cartridge?
So I think, I mean, we still make slugs, so I don't want to deter anybody from going and buying a slug.
I mean, those Sabo slugs are insane. I've shot plenty of them.
But, you know, if I were going to do it today and if I had a slug gun, I really liked it, I would probably just use it until I burned up my inventory of slugs. However, the advantages of using a rifle would be, I would tell you that you're probably going to see better accuracy, so lower dispersion, you know, on average, because you've actually got full bullet to bore contact. You don't have a sabot in between.
In between it, yeah.
Yep. So if you like to shoot little groups, you're probably going to see a larger variety in projectile offerings, from conventional cup and core to your solid coppers. And so there's a little bit of that in slugs as well, but you're probably going to see a little bit more variety. Probably more so is the platform itself. Now, there's a few companies out there that have made bolt action slug guns that have good triggers in them. They feel like a rifle, and it's not your wing shooting gun that you've converted to hunt deer with. That still has the same trigger pull that you're shooting when you're shooting clay birds or doves or whatever. The comb is in the right place for use with an optic. You're not having to put a pad on it to get your head up, things like that to see through your scope. And those are some of the ergonomic disadvantages of converting a slug gun to shoot, rifle barrel. They're not rifles.
Right.
And so, but anyways, there's a few out there. So going to straight wall, you do have a variety of single shot, break open. You've got bolt guns, you've got lever guns, and you've even got some ARs that are, your primary platforms. And then depending on if you have a preference within those or what your state allows you to use, you can then go in and select the power level of the cartridge within the weapon, firearm platform that you like.
Just for example, I've shot a 20 gauge Sabo slug and in a shotgun, and it smacks me.
Yeah, there's a lot of recoil there.
There's kick at the front end and the back. You know what I'm saying?
100%, yeah.
And that when I shot through the 360 buckhammer, I could just cycle through it. Like it's fun.
Yep.
So I feel like that's also a criteria. Maybe if you're a new shooter or maybe a young shooter,
or you just don't like recoil,
I feel like that's possibly something you should look into.
100%. The 400 Legend and down, I think, has very controllable levels of recoil. So your 400, your 360, your 350, in any of the platforms, very controllable. I mean, you can sit on the bench, you can squeeze the triggers. Your concussion is not as loud as a shotgun slug.
Yeah.
I mean, if you ever shoot them side by side, there's a huge difference in the noise. And, you don't necessarily need what a shotgun slug offers to harvest whitetails effectively. 360 buckhammer, with core locks or the new copper bullets or the core lock tips or the one that Federal does with the Fusion and the hammer down. The penetration and the expansion diameters are absolutely adequate for harvesting whitetails.
Yeah. And
if you look at states that have allowed rifles to be used, I think of Pennsylvania as one. It's an eastern state. It's, it's dense. It's not one of your western states. Your 30-30s, your 35 Remingtons, cartridges like that. These are very similar in performance to those, and they've been using them and harvesting deer with them for a long time.
Years.
So the terminal performance is there. So, why not tone it down just a little bit, on your shoulder? Now, if you want that horsepower, then move on up to 45s, 450 Bushmasters, 45 70s, whether it's a lever gun, AR, it's a bolt gun. Again, like Illinois is a single shot state, but you can use a bolt gun just as long as you can't feed rounds like from the magazine. So if you had a plug in it or, the magazine's not in it, it doesn't have to be a true single shot like break open that we think of. You can render your gun a single shot, and it's usable. So, there's a big offering out there. We put a lot of new products in 360 buckhammer, the 400 Legend core locked with the 210. so that these consumers, that if they decide they want to come off those slug guns, that there's a lot of offerings there with a variety of bullets, probably more so than what we would have put out there prior to the states allowing the use of them.
Yeah. And what I wanted to point out is also, like, the states that do allow these now, they let out these lists of approved cartridges. But you were telling me earlier that that's not all of the cartridges that you can use.
Yeah. So early on, I seen a list in Illinois, and it was not an all-encompassing list. So it wasn't the list.
Yeah.
It wasn't that I have to use a cartridge that was on this list. Now, that was the way I read it.
Me too.
4 years ago.
Yeah.
So it could have changed. But like I said, I would make sure that just because if your state has a list and it says, here is the list, these are the cartridges that you can shoot and be legal,
only.
That's one thing. But if it's, here's a recommended list, or here are some options if you don't know what cartridges can be selected, then it's kind of just a recommendation, not necessarily a recommendation. It's just putting some information out there. But there are cartridges that are still legal to use based on that criteria that they provide, as far as what's the minimum caliber or max and min case length, things of that nature. So read the rules and make sure you know what they are. And if there is a list, make sure that just because a cartridge isn't on it, understand if it is the list or just a list. Yeah,
a list of recommended or most popular, or
ones
something like that.
Ones that do fall into their criteria, but it may not be all encompassing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if I'm going to if I'm like, hey, I'm going to switch over from a shotgun to a straight wall cartridge, and I know I'm going to make that move, but I don't know which ones to pick. What is your recommendation for criteria?
I would say that right out of the gate, we've got some criteria as far as what type of platform would you like. And if you're going after the AR bolt gun single shot, you're probably going to pick a rimless cartridge. So that's going to be your 350 Legend, your 400 Legend, or your 450 Bushmaster. If you like a single shot or a lever gun, then you're going to go for rimmed. And that's going to be your 360 Buckhammer, your 444 Marlin, 450 Marlin, 4570. The 405 Winchester is it's out there. Like I said, there's other cartridges and some bigger ones yet. I don't see too many people using the 405, but it could be used. So what kind of rifle do you want?
Right.
Do I want a break open single shot? Do I want a lever gun? Do I want an AR? Do I want a bolt gun? From there, I would break it down into what kind of power level do you want? Do you want equivalent or more than your 20 gauge? If so, stick with your 45s.
The big boys.
If you want to tone it down, come down into your 35s. Do your 350, do your 360 Buckhammer. The 400 is kind of right in the middle from a caliber standpoint. However, it's launching projectiles of a similar weight to the 360 Buckhammer. So the 400 Legend, so far I've seen from like 190 to 215 grain weights. Well, we do 160 to 220. So there's a big overlap in the bullet weight in 360 and 400. You're just going to get a bigger hole, 40 caliber instead of 358. And the speed of those is it's pretty similar. I think our 210 is going to come out of there around 2250, and our 200 core locked, I believe, is 22. So
it's not so different.
So if you recoil level and things like that are going to be very similar. So the 400 is probably more so aligned with the 360 Buckhammer in recoil. 350 Legend is a little bit slower than a 360 Buckhammer. And then, like I said, when you get up into your 450 Bushmaster, 4570s, you're going to kind of have a gap there in grain weight where you're probably going to be shooting 250s up, 250 to 300. And you could go even heavier with 4570. But that's going to be kind of your segregation in recoil and power level. So figure out what kind of gun you like to use. If you got a preference, some people like the nostalgic lever guns just because they're neat. And,
make you feel like a cowboy.
Yeah. They've been around forever. So figure out what kind of gun you like to use. And then from there, segment it up into recoil level. And then, get a gun, put a scope on it, and go shoot.
And make sure you're following state laws.
Yep. 100%.
Always, every step of the way, check your state laws.
Oh yeah, not only on the cartridge, but if there's any firearm restrictions. Like I said, the reference in Illinois, it needs to be a single shot.
Mm-hmm. But you can plug your gun, so always look into that
exactly.
too.
Yep. You can plug the gun.
Yeah. We also have, Core-Lock tipped lever gun, which is about to be available on the website as well. And it's a tipped lever gun cartridge.
Sure.
And but if you're not into, polymer tips, I know that's like new and trendy. It's good for expansion. It improves your BC. Yep. But if you're not into that, we have them all in Core-Locked as well.
100%. Yeah. We've been making the same ones that in the green and yellow box. Yeah, I don't know how many. How old is Core-Locked? You're in marketing. You ought to know.
Over 80 years old.
There we go.
Deadliest mushroom in the woods.
Yep. So there's all that out there and some new stuff. The new Core-Lock tipped lever gun. Now, not all of those are legal, because like 32 Win Special 3030, they are necked. They have their neck down, so they're not straight wall. But we did do 444, 4570. Of course, there is already one in 360. And so those are. Yeah.
So if you want to try the new, what I would call trendy polymer tips, they're available in lever gun cartridges, which is pretty cool.
Yep, and those are the most common. Like I said, there's a few in there. I mentioned 450 Marlin. That's basically a kind of a higher pressured version of a 4570, but it's got a belt on it, so that it has a different actual chamber design. I'm not seeing too many of those anymore, but that's definitely one that would fall into that category. And the 444 is not quite as popular as the 4570, but those are all going to fall into that heavier, closely replicate 20 gauge performance.
The slugs or the slug guns that most people shoot. And I would say if you're shooting a slug gun, you should probably be shooting a slug. They're just awesome.
It's as close as you're going to get to a rifle because you've got stability. You're actually spinning the slug up.
Because you need a rifled barrel to shoot a slug.
You do. Otherwise, they'll just...
Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
They'll tumble and they're not stabilized. Yeah.
We also have rifled slugs, so you don't need a rifled barrel to shoot the rifled slugs.
Yeah,
but
sluggers.
Yeah, they twist for you. Always interesting.
Drag stabilized.
I don't know what that means, John. What does that mean?
That's another podcast.
Okay, that's another podcast, y'all. Well, thanks. You're like the resident expert in switching over because you're from Illinois and they have these laws.
Yeah. No, I've had these conversations with a lot of friends of mine, and we've talked about cartridges. And I've had one friend that initially bought a 350 Legend, and he felt like it was a pop gun, and now his granddaughter shoots it, and he has a 450 Bushmaster, but he was using a muzzleloader that shot smokeless powder. And he was launching, I think, 300 grain bullets at about 2250, 2200.
Dang.
So, it hits with authority.
Yeah.
And so that's what he was used to. And he's not concerned about the recoil. So he went to the 45s. But there's options.
Some people like the recoil. Some people are recoil junkies. They shoot the big boys just to get the recoil, I think.
I wouldn't doubt it.
I know those people.
Well, look at old Kentucky Ballistics. He shoots some cannons on there.
He does. He does. All right. Well, thanks for sitting down with me. It's about to be deer season, so I know people are thinking about guns and cartridges and all that. So we're all getting ready. There you have it, guys. Right?
I was going to say one thing.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
So all the comments that we got on the one that we did for the new versus old. Yeah. New versus old versus new.
Yeah.
This was one of the things that was on there in those comments. It was like, hey, talk about straight walls.
Yeah, it was.
And so, as we kind of brainstorm just a little bit on the next podcast. I just wanted people to know, like, we read those.
And we make podcasts about them.
And we think about, hey, what are people wanting? What can we talk about? What's value added that if consumers are going to go make these decisions, what can we put out there that might help that? So keep it up.
Yeah, keep commenting, please, because we want to talk about what you guys want to hear about. So much appreciated. There you have it, guys. Remington is on the rise. Like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to share this podcast with your hunting or shooting buddies. If you have any questions for me or John here, you can email us at podcast@remington.com or you can comment below. Thanks for listening.